All music is derivative. Beethoven, derivative. Chopin, derivative. Even avant-garde composers are derivative. And yet this word derivative has somehow become the sharpest sword in the armory of lazy criticism. It is levied often with confidence, but upon inspection it reveals itself to be almost entirely devoid of meaning. Now, to be clear, I'm not opposed to critiques, quite the contrary. A thoughtful critique, though painful, is one of the most valuable instruments an artist may possess. As a grindstone sharpens an axe, so too can a serious and honest appraisal sharpen one's focus and abilities. I have received such critiques myself. One of the more difficult came from a Viennese counterpoint professor of mine, who examined one of my pieces, looked me directly in the eye, and declared it Kindergarten. 2 months before its premiere, I abandoned the entire work and began anew. It was a bitter medicine to swallow, but he was correct, and to this day I am thankful. Out of that reworking emerged my piano trio, which I later shared here on this channel. That is a critique worth having. But when I hear a modern composer dismissed with the word derivative, I cannot take it seriously. Unlike Kindergarten, it carries no weight. So what is the problem with this word? Used with care, it could be meaningful. If someone notes that a passage of music leans too heavily on, say, Mozart, or lapses into Pastiche, then at least we are speaking of something identifiable. One can embrace such an observation, justify it, or revise accordingly. But that is not how this word is most often used. Today, derivative is thrown about casually, almost exclusively by a particular type of critic, the academic avant-garde type. For them, all tonal music is automatically derivative. The problem, of course, is that everything in music is derivative. Beethoven draws upon Mozart and Haydn, and even older figured bass principles, or Chopin, who draws upon Hummel and Field. But this is not cause for dismissal. It is the natural course of culture. Innovation is not just conjuring something from nothing. It is building upon what came before. Consider James Watt and the steam engine. Imagine if someone had dismissed his work as merely derivative of boiling water. Such a remark would miss the point entirely. Take, for instance, the case of John Williams. I hear the charge of derivative leveled against him more than most any other living composer. And yet, most can recognize a Williams score within moments. His style is immediately identifiable, unmistakably his. Consider a score like, say, Jurassic Park. What precisely is it derivative of? One might dissect it, note a gesture here reminiscent of Korngold, a harmony here that suggests Strauss, but such nitpicking misses the larger point. The sum of it is not pastiche, nor imitation, but something only John Williams could have written. That, in fact, is the very mark of a true artistic voice, recognizable even amid its influences. This obsession with novelty, this fetish for the new, is the legacy of 20th century modernism. Each generation was taught to fear the past, to abandon convention, to believe that only the revolutionary was worthwhile. But this has led us to a dead end, for there is little left to dismantle. What remains are curiosities like this recent so-called piano sonata, in which the performer never touches the keys, but instead hops awkwardly around the instrument. This, we are told, is innovation, but in truth it is nothing more than a derivative gesture itself. Derivative of John Cage's 433, derivative of decades of performance art. And yet, paradoxically, the same people who lavish praise upon such emptiness are often the first to condemn tonal composers as derivative. Now, to be fair, there are times when a tonal composer lapses into genuine pastiche and present nothing more than a mere imitation of a bygone style. That is a legitimate critique and distinct from the meaningless label of derivative. Pastiche is a composer frozen in time, reiterating a language long past rather than reshaping it. The case of Alma Deutscher illustrates this well. She is undeniably gifted, and her music moves audiences, but her style is bound almost entirely to the late 18th and early 19th centuries. It does not develop that language, but simply restates it. At present, that makes her more akin to a living history reenactor than an innovator. Charming, yes, but one wonders. When she is 30 years old and the novelty of being a prodigy has long worn off, will another Viennese classical style piece carry much weight? I remain doubtful. Yet even here, derivative is not the proper word. The more accurate term is pastiche. This distinction matters. Pastiche describes something. Derivative, when used as a critique, describes nothing. It is wielded as a conversation stopper, a way of dismissing without engaging. But in truth, all art is derivative. The real question must always be, derivative of what, and in what way? If a critic can answer that, if they can identify specific influences or borrowings, then perhaps their words hold some merit. But if all they can do is declare something derivative, then one may safely disregard it. Indeed, I would argue that being derivative, drawing upon many sources, is precisely how one finds a personal voice. At first, the mixture of influences may be cacophonous, but over time it settles, smooths, and becomes something unique. Contrast this with the composer who clings perpetually to a single idiom. They risk never evolving at all. So when someone tells you your music is derivative, ask them, derivative of what? If they cannot answer, their critique is meaningless. If they can, perhaps they have offered you a valuable tool. Either way, remember this: influences are not chains that bind you, but soil in which originality grows. The alternative to being derivative is nothing, and nothing is precisely what you encounter in a so-called sonata, where no keys are struck and the musician just hops around randomly. But that too is derivative, though of the most barren sort. And so the irony completes itself. That is why I contend that to be derivative is no insult, it is a necessity. The only real danger lies in pastiche without growth. So embrace influences, allow them to sharpen you, and in time, let them fuse into something only you could have written.